Thank you. I come from a very brief introduction of where I come from. I come from Nasscom Center of Excellence for IoT and AI. We primarily deal with the deep tech innovators of the country. This is a facilitation between the industry, the academia, government, and of course, the startup. When I say startup, these are supposed to be the innovators of the world. The innovations can come from startups, can come from corporates, and of course, any R&D.
I think you are not audible enough.
All right. Is this better? Is this better? Okay. The objective of this is a PPP model between the state government, where we are, the central government, MIT is our patron, and of course the industry. And when I say industry, Nasscom primarily is the IT association of the country. We work with the non-IT, or what we call is the analog industry, the adopters of innovations. We are in 4 places. We've done almost 220 industry use cases. What I mean by use cases, what are your problems to be solved? What are your use cases? How you will make yourself competitive with the innovations of the world? We work in different technologies. When I say different technologies, these are all emerging deep tech technologies in the center. We go by vertical, which is MedTech, Industry 4.0, and of course energy, RE, EV, smart cities. All of them requiring futuristic innovations. Across the board, we run an incubation and escalation program in 4 cities. So we've got some certified, but our role is not only to help in fact, only 10% of our time goes into our incubation process. What we are assigned to help all deep tech startups in the country. And our primary job is to have what we call as a co-creation. The co-creation means the internal R&D or the engineering of any corporate added with the strengths of the startups. Put them together, the marriage gives wonderful results. This is what we do, and we say if you can bring the agility, the new technology ideas, and the customization, and the frugal innovations which come from startup, with the domain expertise, the brand, the financial muscle of the corporates or the PSUs or the government requirements, I think we can do wonders over there. Just to give an idea of, in last month we had 9 international delegations. The whole world knows that we are now the 3rd largest innovative country on the earth. We crossed 100 unicorns last month, and the whole world looks at India as a place where innovation is grooming, and they are being taken to the rest of the world today. Just to give an indication of what corporate world is doing today, in last year, 260 unique corporates sort of said innovation is for me to remain competitive. I'm out of business if I do not get involved into innovation. And 175 of them have actually started putting investments into it. And these are not, I must say, heavy investments, but they carry a little higher risk because these are innovations, not everything will work. But that's the nature of R&D, that's the nature of disruption. 35 merger acquisitions and open innovation. Open innovation is something which we bring to the table much more than the others. Just to give you a few idea of, if you look at the 3rd one, which is the Cisco. Cisco was never into agriculture. But with SetSure, which is a company, a startup which looks from the satellite, they yield the deficiency of micronutrients in a very large acreage of area for a specific plant. That is where Cisco is now. So you look at the real, the solutions for what we call as roti kapda makan is coming back from the digital world. Where are these innovations in the digital areas impacting the real needs of humankind? Innovations, if you look at certain, I'm just giving a few examples just to sort of say what kind of innovations are happening in the country. You look at Equilibrium, which has average energy saving of 15 to 20%. And in terms of 15-20%, that's a huge number. I'll give you an example of one of our incubators. He said, if I can change the efficiency of a boiler in a thermal power plant by 2%, that 2% to a CFO doesn't really mean too much. But when you convert it into a few $1 million, all of a sudden you say, yeah, that's good. Guys like Aditya Birla or the solar power companies, they are actually doing, whether it's cleaning the solar panel in time, whether the AIs or the predictions to the load side management is a serious topic. All these are very critical, where AI engines have actually helped the renewable energy and the people who are working in that area. L&T, of course, you know, meter related area, connected real the electrical parameters in AB Carter, India. These are very few examples where ROIs have been very strong. In fact, some of the corporates have been saying, please don't give these ROI figures to our management, they will not believe it. The reason is that these startups would work at a very frugal level. They don't work at the level that a typical R&D organization, R&D part of an organization works. So when the denominator is so low and the ROIs have been so high, it's an immediate decision making for corporates to do. Battery, you know, lots of swaps which has happened, 30,000 EVs, Kazam has done it. Hindustan Petroleum tied up for the first battery swapping station in the city. So these are all typical examples of very well successful areas that we are talking about. Future areas that we've been very good on: digital twin. Digital twin is converting a process or a manufacturing method into the electronic part to predict certain things which may go wrong in future. We had a very large aircraft manufacturer who said, if I can manufacture just one more plane in a year, I'm very happy. And they gave us 6 months to find somebody who can do it. We got somebody in 6 weeks, and they're now in 2 parts of Europe. If you look at the way corporate works, and we realize that the corporate has said to us that in 6 weeks, actually we would have just gotten approval from our management whether to do it or not. Whereas a startup has actually shown how it is done, and there's a huge ROI on that. Blockchain and distributed energy resources, when you put a lot of mix of all these different type of sources of power, and then you want to bring it into a democratized kind of auction, which is every 5 minutes or 15 minutes, you need to have that kind of transparency of where this energy has come from. This is no more going to be like a, you know, the stock market fluctuation. It has to be based on a science. If I say that my coal additional delta power at 6 in the evening is this, let people know about it. Let me quote a fair price to it, so that while I'm saying that I should make money, but I should make reasonable good amount of money for the society. Grid integrated vehicle, we all know that any excess power that we're feeding into solar powered system, and there are experiments happening in the world who are doing this, that you can invert it back and do a grid tie inverter. And grid tie inverter today is a very common thing. Almost every roof mounted or ground mounted is on an on-grid system, which means that you can easily deploy it. There are tons of batteries in the cars that are owned by lots of people in the city. A few other areas of digital transformations, and some examples on power purchase agreements, 3D in energy printing, advanced energy storage. Of course, we've been talking about a lot of iron flow, thermal, potassium, sodium, every kind of material that can get into energy. But there have been certain areas which we go back to something like a pumped storage. Pumped storage is not a new place, and I'm sure a lot of people actually did it 3-4 decades back in India. Why it didn't work? Let's try to find out those reasons and see whether it can be still revived, because it had inherent good advantages to do that. Digital twinning for energy and utilities, there are a good number of companies which are doing it. You know, the impact of that can be huge. When we try to bring a lot of energy, and what John said is when you produce 100% energy and there are chances on a few days that you are actually saying, Germany did it, they said negative pricing. And what do you do when it comes to that state? You know, you're losing money actually. So can we have certain arrangements where digital twin along with AI on a variety of digital plus the production of the or the forecast of sun, the wind and other natural resources can all be put together to give you a decision point. Finally, the decision point has to be automated. A few things that I want to talk about is the battery swapping. There are some examples of the Indian startups who have done it, AI charge management solutions and charging infrastructure. Many of these names are now very well on the curve of becoming unicorns, if I can say that. A few of the charging innovations globally that's happening, and where I think we have a room to play a role, and I think it's a mix of what we try to bring is academicians with the industry adopting it, along with what startups can do in between, wireless charging, pop-up pavement charging, roadside street cabinets, swappable batteries, lamp post charging, electrified, name any kind of thought process which can happen into that. Because today, if you go to the period when we had STD booths in every pawn shop and the rural remote areas, today we have startups right in our place which are sort of democratizing the EV charging. So which means all those people who had STD booths can actually be an EV charger. Which means that if I own a car, I can see on my app which is the closest charging point, how many cars are waiting, which means that I can actually know what is my waiting time over there, what's the charging price, what is the time it will take for me to charge. All these are available on my fingerprints for me to decide whether I should drive another 10 kilometers or can I have food over there where the charging price is quite reasonable. These are the kind of examples. A lot of new generation batteries, including graphene, zinc air, name a few of these startups, Log9 Medical, doing very wonderful job in battery new technologies. Wireless charging, we had advanced battery management system. Now battery management systems, people will say, EVs use battery management, but I think there's a big room to still play with. We have still gone through the first round, which is the power electronic part of it. But the intelligence of it is now being discussed. Hydrogen-powered EV charging, a sort of hybrid system that is happening, and of course, megawatt charging for trucks. Now, we've been having talks with the kinds of Volvos and the big multinational companies. They're all talking about what happens to truck. Will you have hydrogen? Will you have fuel cells? Will you have EV, pure battery-based? I think there will be a room for everyone to play, everyone to prove, and it's not only technology, it's a techno-commercial proving that they have to do, and I think we'll have a room for everyone to play in that game, and I think we'll have to give them a chance of at least 5 years to see what really works and what really works probably in a particular zone of the world. Key technology advancements, for example, we're talking about ultra-fast charging because nobody has the time. We have a startup which does very fundamentally different kind of thing. Just like you put fuel through a pipe, he's actually putting a chain of batteries put together into your car and taking the old one out. It's just like as if you're filling something. It's a very new innovation. But I think there's a room for everyone to think differently. And we know that a startup is a high-risk area. You will not have all startups, all ideas to be actually implementable, but let those 10 start to get the 2 successes. V2G, vehicle to grid, is a very good example. We could do it. We have tons of batteries in our vehicles, and many of the residential vehicles are actually going to be charged by sun. Why don't we use those? Wireless EV charging, new battery technologies, all these are things which are happening. That's all from me. Thanks a lot, and I thank you.